In our karmic mind, in the land of the constructed self, we have a tendency to get pushed and pulled by life's circumstances, to live our life from one disappointment to another, or one thing that we're looking forward to or another. Now happy, now sad, now hot, now cold. We see insurmountable obstacles and intractable problems. And the end of the world is never far away. If you don't believe me, just look at the world's literature. From the time of the Bible, people have been predicting the end of the world is nigh. Every generation says it's clearly worse now than it ever was. Clearly worse. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It's a thread woven throughout, and that's the story of scarcity and lack that the small self lives in. Occasionally, we catch a glimpse of the world beyond. As convincing as these images and portents may seem, we begin to recognize that things seldom unfold as we imagine them. And when we can actually begin to sense a world seen through the knots of the fence of our longing and aversion, a world of freedom, of boundlessness. And in that moment, we begin to yearn to take our place in that home. But we may actually think of it as a home that's in silence, away from our tortured thoughts, some sense of escape. We may even wonder if such an existence is possible or what it would look like. And so we're looking for somewhere else. We get a glimpse of this conundrum in the 19th case of the Shōyōroku. It's called Ummon's Mount Sumeru. The case begins. Attention. A monk asked Ummon, when not producing a single thought, is there any fault or not? Ummon says, Mount Sumeru. So Ummon was the founder of the Ummon school of Zen, one of the 5 original schools of Zen that have collapsed into, in the States too, Soto and Rinzai. The Ummon school folded more carefully into the Rinzai school. And he was a disciple of Bokyushu and Seppo. We meet Seppo in some of the other cases. Bokushu, we only know through legends and lore. But Ummon appears in about, I think it's almost 40 cases across the classic Koan anthologies. He's the most prevalent character you see. We always think of Joshu, right? Because when Joshu shows up, generally we're in for it, right? But Ummon's no less impactful. But he wields his sword so carefully that when it lands, we forget that the executioner was present. And there are 2 stories about Ummon's awakening in the anthology collections. In one, he's studying with Bokushu, who suddenly seizes him and throws him down to the floor, right? And in the impact on the floor, his foot gets caught and it breaks, and he says, ouch. And in that flash of impact, the self that was seeking anything collapses into a recognition of, it's right here. And another, he's with Seppo. And Seppo slams a temple gate shut, unfortunately on Ummon's leg. And in that shock, the whole world's open. So you choose which one. But on either side, there was this collapsing away from the world of our thoughts of disaster into our deep recognition of pain. And into that deep recognition of pain, a sense of liberation that comes with just being here. So whether he was thrown or struck, both stories point to the same moment, when body and mind drop away and reality reveals itself as whole and undivided. Ummon spent a whole life teaching the practice of turning obstacles into gateways. Whether through pain, whether through surprise, he's constantly trying to turn our attention towards the revelation that awakening doesn't come from avoiding the world, but from meeting it completely. So here we have a monk approaching him and asking him about a mind free of thought. And Ummon doesn't really offer comfort or concept. Instead, he lifts up Mount Sumeru itself, the vast Dharmakaya right before him. The mountain's vast, immovable, inescapable. And depending on how you interact with it, it can become a trap or a gate. Yeah. So there's a preface to the assembly that opens up this case, and Shogaku wrote it, and he says, I always admire the novel action of Ummon. All his life he pulled out nails and wedges for people. Why did he sometimes open his gate and set out a tray of glue or dig a pitfall in the middle of the road? If you examine this closely, you'll see. So is there a trap here? There is. There's both a trap and a Dharma gate. It all depends on how you shift your gaze, or ultimately, how well you include everything that's present, rather than bracketing your perception to include less or more. Longing and aversion, right? It's the constant push and pull of the small self. In Zen, one of the terms we use for this form of direct seeing is we talk about a first nen experience. In a first nen experience, we relate directly. There's no gap, there's no separation between our lived experience and our self. Think of it as like, drinking a glass of wine, right? And really tasting it. Something really to savor. It's amazing. And there's a pleasant, uplifting warmness that comes with it. Or a glass of juice. That'll work too. Yeah. In that moment, there's no one drinking and no drink to be had. There's just revitalization. The whole universe is refreshment. A second then arises when we try to relate this experience to a friend, or even in the world of our memory later on. No matter how carefully we choose our words, we can't fully conjure the immediacy of that first experience. A third nen experience might appear when a friend retells that story to someone else, or when we ruminate on the memory of having described it and adjudicate its worthiness. Ideology, prejudice, and our philosophical frameworks are all products of the third nen and beyond. This isn't to say that they aren't useful. It's just seeing how they form and putting them in their correct place. They're not substitutes for direct experience. But the issue is that sometimes we cling so tightly to our ideas about reality that we actually miss reality itself. We have a name for it. We call it delusion. But delusion even loosens its sting if you see it for what it is rightly. The question becomes, is each an echo of the nen included in the great mountain? Yeah? Yes. Yeah. It's all the great mountain itself. But if you see only the foothill, or the one who's witnessing the mountain, you never truly appreciate the scale of it. When you take it all in, you recognize there's nothing to climb and no one to climb it. If you try to exclude your thoughts, the mountain rises tall and it blocks you. But if you try to cling only to your thoughts, the trap springs too, and you're stuck. So what do? Here we teach the Three Transformative Touchstones, and they're a framework that's deeply rooted in the precepts. And within it, we find the antidote for this type of stuck. First is to maintain wonder, meeting each moment with openness and curiosity, allowing creativity and insight to arise from direct experience. When we stop clinging to this or that, label or labeler, and simply open to what is present, our distinctions all lose their hold. To maintain wonder is not to measure every experience against some cosmic scale of definitions, but to actually see it for what it is right now, right here. We often substitute our judgments for reality. Why do that? When reality is right present, you can experience it directly. When we're able to do this, when we're able to cut through our judgments, not saying exclude them, but to include them and see them rightly as an echo, the second touchstone naturally follows. The second touchstone is to include everything. When we're able to embrace joy and sorrow, We're able to embrace confusion and clarity and see them all as essential aspects of the unfolding path before us. Then we can really truly be all-inclusive. Noise and quietude have to both be experienced. Longing and aversion are both our teachers as well. In not resisting one, we find harmony and balance in both. We begin to see that the obstacle and the path are not two separate things. And when we see this, we can actually catch a glimpse of our true nature. And we recognize the ultimate sufficiency of what is there. We see the vast boundlessness of our true nature. When we're able to do this, maintain our contact with these two touchstones, maintaining wonder, including everything, the third touchstone arises without effort to transform suffering. When to begin to work with what we consider to be difficulty, not as an obstacle, but as the very ground from which wisdom expression are born, through skillful action. Not by excluding thought, and not by judging rightly, by opening completely, by letting our heart and our hands align. We become actualized by circumstances. And when we're actualized by circumstances, differences disappear. Yeah. It's more than sufficiency here. You can meet everything, knowing that you contain all of the universe, boundless universe within you. Of course, that includes the suffering as well. But you also have all the resources to meet that suffering with compassion in a way that transforms them. You have to shift your gaze to open actively to your boundless nature, not bracketing ourselves to see one or the other, but training ourselves to allow it to include it all. There's an appreciatory verse for all of the cases of the Shōyōroku. Shogaku, I think, hits this one pretty well. Not raising a single thought, Mount Sumeru. Ummon's Dharma is not meant to be stingy. Come to accept it, and you'll get a double portion. But if you doubt it, you'll never scale that 1,000-yard height. Blue oceans vast, white clouds at ease. Between them, there's not a hair's breadth. A false cock's crow never deceives one. But be unsure, and you'll not pass through the barrier. It's all right here. Ummon's words were very few. Matter of fact, 2. But the full measure is contained within. If you see it as a meager feast, you'll starve. Yeah? But if you open to its wonder, if you allow all of Mount Sumeru in, you'll swallow the whole vast universe. Yeah? And there'll be nothing outside. But this has to be lived. It can't be understood. This is something that has to be thought through with your hands, with your feet, and with your heart. Actively engaged. It's always right here, even when you think it's conspicuously absent. Each of you carries this, and all. The question becomes, how will you use it? Or will you just collapse into one of the foothills or the path? Each one of you, Mount Sumeru.